American Legion, and remain standing for our invocation by our honorary chaplain and Korean War veteran, Paul O'Keefe.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Supreme Commander in heaven, we thank you once again for giving us this day to honor and pay tribute to our Saratoga County deceased veteran of the month. Our April veteran is Sergeant Donald C. Monica from the town of Corinth, who served in the country, served his country in the United States Army. Oh God, by whose mercy the faithful departed find rest, look kindly on our deceased veteran, Sergeant Donald C. Monica, and grant that through the passion, death, and resurrection of your Son, Donald may share in the joy of your heavenly kingdom and rejoice in you with your saints forever. We ask this through Christ our Lord, and may the perpetual light shine very brightly upon Donald's soul. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Again, special thanks to Chaplain O'Keefe, Korean War veteran. He's here with us every month, and we appreciate his dedication to our program. He's always here without fail. As I mentioned, on behalf of the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors, we'd like to welcome you to our ceremony honoring our deceased veterans. The intent of our ceremony is to honor and recognize our veterans and their families for serving their country and their community. Our program started in August of 1999, and since then, Saratoga County has honored over 300 of our own men and women who answered the call to duty. This month is no different. The town of Corinth, and I say that, you have to say Corinth correctly. Dave Lockhart taught me that about 12 years ago. And if you screw that up, you're in trouble. So this month, the town of Corinth has nominated Donald C. Monica. Don was born on November 28th, 1945 in Malone. His parents, Carl and Mary Jane. He graduated from Corinth High School in 1963. By 1965, it was clear there would be a full-scale war in Vietnam. The North Vietnamese had turned down offers for peace, and the Viet Cong had effected a number of attacks against South Vietnamese and American forces. In August of 1965, the first large-scale battle of the war takes place between the U.S. and Viet Cong forces at Chu Lai. Don quietly entered into the U.S. Army on September 28, 1965, and was first ordered to Fort Dix, New Jersey for basic training, and then trained as an engineer equipment repairman at the U.S. Army Engineering Center at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. After training, Don was ordered to Vietnam in April of 1966. He was assigned to Bravo Company, 84th Engineer Battalion Construction. The 84th Engineers was a unit that had already established a long history in combat theaters throughout the world, and it would continue this tradition in Vietnam. During his time in Vietnam, the 84th operated out of several locations, including An Khie, an area which is outside of Da Nang, and Quy Nhon, about 322 kilometers south of that. In Vietnam, Don and his unit were responsible for construction of major bases, depot facilities, warehouses, roads, bridges, and airfields. And I think one operation in particular sums up exactly what Don and his fellow engineers were involved in and overcame. And in August of 1966, the 937th Engineer Group Combat and two of its battalion units, the 19th Engineer Battalion Combat and the 84th Engineer Battalion Construction, were in the vicinity of Keenan. Operation Duke was the name of the operation, and it was in support of the 1st Cavalry Division Air Mobile at LZ English Field, which was much to the south of where they were located. The Operation Duke mission was to enlarge LZ English so that it met the minimum requirements for C-130 aircraft operations. This meant that they had to essentially double the length of the airfield. The only direction which it could be extended took it across a ravine and through a hill, which was currently at that time in use as a cemetery. The officers of the construction battalions had to pay local Vietnamese citizens to move the graves from the cemetery so they could extend the runway into that area. The 19th Engineer Battalion was assigned to land 2 companies on the beach to construct a bridge across a tidal inlet, repair the causeway, and clear the road from the beach to a village and then south to the location for the 84th and all of its heavy equipment. The 84th Construction Battalion was then charged with building the extension of the runway. And I'd like to quote to you a story about this from one of Don's fellow engineers who was on the mission. And I quote, "It was 3 a.m. in Keenan, and we were awakened by the staff sergeant to go to the mess hall for breakfast and to be briefed. 187 engineers were handpicked for this operation, which was to take place near the town of Bang Sang on the coast of South Vietnam. Our mission was to build an airfield there. Rumor had it that Operation Duke was a top priority, and the word had come from headquarters in Saigon. After our briefing, we moved to the port in 5 convoys. The week before, we had prepared our equipment, and we were ready to move out at any time. I drove a 5-ton dump truck that had 2 rubber fuel bladders containing 600 gallons of gasoline apiece. There were 6 other dump trucks that carried fuel enough for our vehicles to run on the field. Other equipment included 6 earth scrapers, 2 bulldozers, 4 graders, and many assorted vehicles. All this had to be loaded on a ship because a convoy over land was impossible since the Viet Cong had blown most of the bridges on the way to Bang Sang. My convoy was the first to arrive on the beach at about 6:30 a.m. on September 1st of 66. We waited until 11 a.m. before we could load up on the landing craft. This would take us to the USS Gunston Hall, which was a landing ship. Once on board, our equipment was put on the upper deck by cables, which were exceptionally manipulated by the sailors. It took all day for our gear to be placed on board. We lashed down our vehicles so that they could so they could not hit anything when the ship pitched and rolled at sea. After a couple more hours of tiring work, we went to the ship's mess and had a wonderful meal. The sailors on board were fairly friendly to us, and I could tell they did not wish to be in our shoes. We departed that evening and hit the rack early because we were so tired, and it had been a long day, and there would be longer days ahead. My room had air conditioning for the very first time since I was in Vietnam, and I thought to myself, I was in heaven. The next morning, we were off the coast of Tam Quan, about 9 miles north of Bang Sang. We were on board the Gunston all for 2 nights before we landed. I'll never forget it. The surf was bad, and on the beach, our unit was receiving harassment from the Viet Cong. I can clearly remember watching the jets bomb areas to our right. Looking to our sea, we could see one destroyer on the horizon peppering the beach with its guns. I was on the last landing craft that final morning, and to be honest with you, I didn't want to leave. We waited on the beach until noon to move inland. 4 days before we landed, 3 bridge companies and 1 combat engineer company had landed. They were there to build bridges for our heavy equipment, and the completion of the bridges caused the delay. We finally moved to a South Vietnamese Army compound for the night. This position was 4 miles from the beach. An attack was expected that night, but it never happened. For some reason, our officers would not give us hand grenades that night. Instead, about 20 of us borrowed hand grenades from the U.S. Army for the day. We cleaned our M14s and dug in deep. The next morning, most of us woke up to a firefight about a quarter mile from our position. The Army of the Republic of Vietnam had come in contact with a squad of Viet Cong. Early that morning, mine sweeping team moved out to clear the road while we all waited. And this was time to give nearly a dozen GIs the opportunity to talk to Army of the Republic of Vietnam's second lieutenant. He was the executive officer of the armed personnel carrier that had escorted us from the beach, and they were also our rear security. The second lieutenant knew how to speak English fairly well, and he showed us on the map just where the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army strongholds were in the area. He had asked us what we were going to build, and we had said that we were going to construct an airstrip in 2 weeks, and that we would be working around the clock to finish it using lights in the dark. The lieutenant looked at us as if we were crazy because it was unheard of to use lights in this area at night. After a little noontime chow, word came to motivate. 2 miles down the road, we started to get hit by sniper fire on the right. I told my shotgun to let them know we were here, and he started the fire at the tree line on the other side of the rice paddies. Finally, we came to our destination and no one was wounded or killed. Luck was with us. We took our position on the knob of a ridge. We dug foxholes, pitched our tents, and put out barbed wire around the perimeter. All in all, Operation Duke took 2 months, though was expected to be completed in 2 weeks. Sea rations kept us going for all that time, and we only had 4 hot meals, which were brought in by helicopter near the end of the mission. We appreciated our work even more when we saw the first large transport plane, a Lockheed C-130 Hercules, land at English Airfield. So after Don's tour of duty in Vietnam was over, he was ordered back to the United States, and he completed his service at Fort Belvoir, where he assisted in the training of incoming soldiers. But before that, he was granted leave, where he was able to come home and marry his sweetheart here, Sue. And Sue shared with us a letter, and I hope I don't embarrass her here, but she must have been something because, boy, he was head over heels with you in that letter. I think he told her he loved her about 50 times, which was very nice to read. It was very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. No doubt that while 1 year in Vietnam doesn't seem like a long time, but in Vietnam, it's a lifetime. And I'm sure Don's experience allowed him to pass on knowledge that you can't get from a book to the incoming soldiers who would replace him and so many others in Vietnam. And you have to think about that and the experience that Don had and being able to pass that on and how many lives he may have saved by sharing what he knew. You know, you can't learn that stuff in a book. Don was honorably discharged at the rank of sergeant on September 27th, 1968. For his service, he received the Good Conduct Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, the Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the National Defense Service Medal. And today, we honor Donald Monica as a hero, a family man, volunteer, and a community leader. And now, at this time, I'd like to introduce our supervisor from the town of Corinth, Supervisor Eric Butler.
Thank you very much. So actually that story tells me a lot about the Monica men in this family and how they really became so adept at fixing anything. I worked a few years with Timmy, and Timmy's the type of guy that doesn't matter what it is, he can fix it or he can build it. He can do anything. I think that's a trait that I'm sure runs deep in that family, and it's not something you just shake off. So if any of you knew Don, you certainly knew Don as the maple syrup guy. Don was the proud owner of Maple Valley Farm up on Harris Road. He's a 4th generation maple producer who learned the trade from his grandfather up on the Canadian border. He in turn taught his children this trade. And in turn, they now, let's start over again. He in turn taught his children to operate the proud family business. I know now Tim and Scott, granddaughter Abby, run this Maple Valley Farms, and I'm sure that Don is very proud at this point in time just to watch you guys do that. It's all right, Abby. So Don also is a founding member of the Upper Hudson Valley Maple Producers. And what I really remember about Don is that every conversation I ever had about Don, or with Don, he just made it easy to talk to. He was just a great guy, not a guy that, you know, stood up and wanted a lot of attention, but every time you engaged with Don, he always seemed to have a little smile on his face when he explained anything to you and talked to you, and just made it comforting to have a conversation with him. So Don also works 30 years at our school bus garage, retiring as the head mechanic. And Don was also very involved. I think it's credit on me. Don was also very involved in the community. He and Sue were both members of the Legion Post 533, which are here today. For many years, Don was, I mean, there's a slew of things here that Don was involved in, and I'm sure that I probably only have half of them, but he was the local bingo caller at the Knights of Columbus. He put 3 kids through a scouting program. And I know and he was involved in that scouting program well after these 3 got out. I know that I put my kid through the scouting program 12, 14 years ago, and still to this day, we went there with my son and spent a chilly November weekend cooking that turkey wrapped in foil in a big pit on the Monica farm. So always an experience, but I think right to the end that was a priority of his. He was also a member of the Grange, a member of the Merchants Association. He was a fire commissioner in Hadley, Luzerne Fire District. There's a little story about that coming. Board member of the Saratoga County Soil and Water District, and as you would expect, attended all of the local farmers markets. So as the town supervisor, we're very proud to acknowledge Don as a Corinthian. So that leads me to another little story of how we got here today. So in the town of Corinth, every time our turn comes up, we kind of deflect to the American Legion Post and ask for a name to pick a veteran. So they give us a name. Someone calls me, I'm in the office one day, and they're like, all right, we'd like to put up Don Monica. I was like, oh, great choice. Okay, so I hang up the phone, don't think too much about it. I tell them that I will communicate with the county and let them know. So then 15 minutes later, this light goes off, and I think to myself, well, the Monica home and the Monica farm is officially a 9-iron down Harris Road that actually sits in the town of Hadley. So I'm thinking, well, this is what's not good. I call Frank and I say, hey, Frank, so now what? Frank's like, well, listen, we don't really have a problem with that. He's a veteran. You can honor any veteran you want. Doesn't make any difference to us. They're like, okay, good. He says, well, I suggest maybe you call the town of Hadley supervisor. I was like, ooh, good point. So I call my friend, Supervisor Wright, sitting over there, looking with a little grin on his face. And I say, hey, Mo, buddy, pal, super duper friend of mine. I need a little favor. I tell him the backstory. And he's very gracious about it. And we talk and we haggle back and forth. And at some point in time, I'm pretty sure he wanted me to sign an agreement that I was going to have to wash his truck for a whole year in order to get this to happen. But he didn't. I think I can avoid that anyway. But so for that, I just wanted to thank all of you for coming today and honoring Don. We have the town actually has a plaque we'd like to present. Let me read this real quick. But we'd like to honor Don Monica for his service to the town of Corinth and Hadley and our country. He enlisted in the U.S. Army from 1965 to 68, serving in the Vietnam conflict. He was an active member in our community and involved in many local organizations. Don put his family, maple syrup, and his community ahead of everything. We're proud to call him a Corinthian. Thank you from the Corinth Town Board.
I'm gonna adjust this thing a little bit here. Okay. Thank you, Supervisor. Just one caveat, we will honor a veteran, but they have to live in Saratoga County. Okay, we're not going down on the other side of the river down there at all, anything like that. Next, I'd like to introduce our chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Army veteran Supervisor Phil Barrett from the town of Clifton Park.
Thank you, Frank. I'm glad that Supervisor Butler did not commit to washing Supervisor Wright's car because he's already committed to my car for the year, and I don't want him to overextend himself. So that's good to hear. Thank you, Mo. Attending these ceremonies for many years, this is my 25th year on the Board of Supervisors, and you learn so much about people's roles as they served our country so bravely and how they came home and served their community so well. And everybody has a role. And Don's role was one of a fixer, of a builder. So when he went to Vietnam, he played an extremely important role because no army can fight without the proper infrastructure, without the ability to get resources to the front lines. And he was part of a very expert team that made sure that all of that was in place for our brave men and women to be successful. Just an incredible story about his role in Vietnam. And then when he came home, all I can picture is Don being the guy that every time there's a group of people that can't figure out what to do or how to fix something, well, just give Don a call. Yeah, get Don over here. Call him up. See if he'll come over and help us out. That's what it seems to me when I read through the many groups that he was involved with, and then knowing what his incredible talent was. And that's what I picture, because every community has people like that, thank God. And although we've lost Don, I know his family has continued his legacy and continue to fulfill Don's promise, which was to always serve, whether it be his country or his community. I think I learned how to pronounce Corinth from Dick Lucia. Was that you, Dick? I think it was, but like 25 years ago. Dick made sure that I knew how to pronounce Corinth, so I want to thank you for that, Dick. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I hadn't seen you in a while, so it's great to see you. So you've been blessed with two great supervisors since I've been here. Between Dick Lucia, Supervisor Butler has just been tremendous. So on behalf of the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors, I have a few things to present to you. One is a Saratoga County Vietnam Service Medal. And it's a beautiful medal that was created and designed by our staff. I also have a Saratoga County Veterans Challenge coin that I hope you'll carry with you in Don's honor and memory. I also have the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors proclamation, and I won't read the whole thing because a lot of the information we're already mentioning as part of Don's story. But we believe when you do get a chance to read this and hopefully hang it on your wall, it'll be something you cherish as a reminder of our appreciation for everything that Don has done for your community, our county, and the country. So God bless you and thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Saratoga County Clerk, Craig Hayner.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's truly a privilege to be here today and a real honor to be partaking in this ceremony each and every month, honoring somebody from our community and learning so much about people who have made such a difference. not only in their service to their country, but also in their communities. I do want to commend Frank and his team for doing a tremendous job, as always, putting together the narrative for us to learn a little bit about Don, and gives us a good picture of what just a little small glimpse of what he must have went through. And it's truly a great opportunity to be able to learn those things. When I was looking through his bio, there's a lot of things that really stuck out to me. Obviously, his service to his country was amazing. The fact that he worked with his hands, we don't talk enough about that in our country anymore, and we really need to do that, because if it wasn't for people, as Chairman Barrett talked about, there isn't people doing that work behind the scenes, and it doesn't matter what it is. We don't have anything, and we truly need to show appreciation for those who work with their hands. And it's very evident that Don not only did that, but he worked close to the dirt too. My brothers and I are fifth generation on a family farm, so we know what it takes to make those kind of things happen and run a small business. So there's no doubt about it that I'm sure he learned a lot, and the family learned a lot about a lot of things, having to do those things every day, because if you don't do them, there isn't anybody else that's going to be there to do it. So but it's just, I just love this, the service to the American Legion Post, the Boy Scout leader. His work ethic must have been amazing, and I'm sure he's passed that all on to your family, and just his volunteerism and community service. It's just fantastic, and it is great to see Supervisor Lucia. I haven't seen you in a while, and it's really great to see you here today. I have a small story about Corinth. So when you run for a countywide position, you have to go and interview with committees. So when I went to the town of Corinth Republican Committee to speak to them, my brother, who was a deputy sheriff for many years and covered Corinth a little bit, warned me to make sure that when I addressed the committee to say Corinth. So I think I've only slipped up once and called it Corinth, but I think most of the time I've been able to hold that together. But such a great community. I remember walking in the 4th of July parade with Mr. Lucia. It's a patriotic community. It's one of our best. So thank you for the honor to be here today. Thank you for your dad's service, your husband's service, and we're just truly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. At this time, I'd like to introduce our district attorney for Saratoga County, Karen Hagan.
Podium's bigger than I am, which is why I'm coming over here. Everybody behind me is used to my little joke here, but it affords me the opportunity to really get a moment to say thank you on behalf of our community for the service of your family member. All of us in government, in one way or another, are able to do our jobs because men and women have for generations stepped up and become members of the armed forces to defend our freedoms and our right to govern and our right to make decisions in ways that involve all the people of our communities. And one of the things that always touches me each and every month is the fact that every single person that we've recognized is someone who didn't stop serving the other citizens of their communities after they return from overseas or their service in other parts of the country. That continued on forever and ever. And I'm sure from the sounds of it, it has been passed along to all of you and will continue for generations. That ripple effect that happens, it's not just a pebble in the water, but that goes and spreads on and on, whether it's the Boy Scouts, whether it's the American Legion, who your post always turns out in such great numbers when we're recognizing one of your members. And it's so wonderful to see. But in my role as the district attorney, the rights of citizens to be represented when someone's accused of a crime, to present evidence to citizens of our community when someone is accused of doing that, and having our our democracy and government decide whether someone is guilty or innocent all stems from each and every person who stands up and is a member of our armed forces. And that is something that I so very much cherish. I can't end without adding my Corinth story as well. Over 30 years ago, I joined the district attorney's office and I was assigned to 3 courts, and one of those was Corinth. And Judge Straight and Judge Clothier taught me an awful lot about what it means to be a person to listen, not just speak. Lawyers like to speak, and I don't deny that, but to listen. And that gave me the sense and the understanding of what a great community that you have had and continue to have. And so it's my honor to have penned a small note for you to read at some point in the future, but I join with others here in saluting Mr. Monica for all of his great works on our behalf. Thank you.
Well, and our district attorney mentioned that post 533 does show up, quite often. But I will tell you, every month we have representatives from 533. And of course, Boston Spa is outside. You'll see those gentlemen, 234, they're here every month. But of all of the Legion posts and DFW posts, not to take away from any one or the other, Corinth has a very active and passionate post, and they travel the whole county to support things like this. The Iceman, Frank Pinjelski, he's always there, but these guys are a great group of guys, and that's for sure. Next speaker I'd like to introduce, representing Assemblyman Matt Simpson. As you all are aware, if you're reading and watching the news, New York State is deep in the budget process. So all of our state representatives are in Albany, but he has sent a representative, Kirsten DeCanio, who will make a presentation on behalf of the Assemblyman.
Frank. As Frank mentioned, Assemblyman Simpson could not be here today, but I am proudly and honored to be here today to just thank you guys so much for your contributions to Don's life, because obviously all of the contributions he's made to each and every one of you that have made you the people that you are have been so special. And I also want to recognize all of you guys for all the contributions that you've added to Don's life and helped make him the person that he was. And so just a quick aside, when I was reading through his extensive life accomplishments, the one word that came to mind was that I was inspired. The amount of things that he did within our community and by serving but through his service were just, I was amazed, and it truly inspired me to want to get involved in my community more. And so I just want to thank again you guys for continuing to push him. And I hope that we all take a lesson today and remember that when we leave this earth, the things that we have done are going to be remembered. We're going to be known for what we did in our community, all of the relationships and the friendships that we've had. So thank you to you guys, and thank you for all the contributions that you've made during his time and in service and after when he was with this community. So, and I do have just a quick citation signed by the
Thank you, Kirsten. Representing Senator Jim Tedisco, the 44th Senate District, is Adam Kramer.
Well, thank you, Frank, and thanks to the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors, each and every month doing this incredible ceremony. As Frank mentioned, Senator Tedisco couldn't be here. He, along with Assemblyman Simpson, are stuck in Albany on the budget. They're both giving him hell today and every day, fighting for taxpayers. But the senator wanted me to come and present the New York State Senate Liberty Medal. It's passed by resolution. It's a Senate's highest honor. When I think of our Vietnam veterans. I was born in 1973, just as combat was winding down, and born in the shadow of Vietnam. And I think of, all our veterans of World War II, like Mr. O'Keefe, Korean War veterans, Cold War, the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. They say that Vietnam, it was a controversial war, but there should be no controversial veterans, because each and every one of them is an American hero. Wherever you served, whenever you served, if you served honorably, then the United States and our citizens should give you the honor that you deserve and that hero's welcome. I don't know if Don got that hero's welcome when he came home, the parades, the thanks for a grateful nation. I'm not sure he was interested in that, but he should have had that. He deserved it. And each person who served in Vietnam deserved that. So I think we're starting to change the, we're giving those thanks that they so richly deserve now. It's a little late, but they deserve it. And it's about time. So on behalf of Senator Tedisco and the New York State Senate, it's truly my honor to present the New York State Senate Liberty Medal. Again, this was passed by resolution, passed unanimously, which, if you know anything about the legislature, never happens. So I'm going to present this to you, and then these are 2 citations that go along with that.
Thank you, Adam. Congressman Tonko couldn't be here with us today, but he has sent a representative who will make a special presentation to the family, Monica Lahi.
Thank you very much, Frank. Quick aside, since we're sharing our Corinth stories, I guess, today. The one thing I love about going to Corinth every time is I love eating at the Vested Veteran Grill. Their food is delicious. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, again, as Frank mentioned, my name is Monica Lahi here on behalf of Congressman Paul Tonko and his office, who couldn't have the pleasure of attending today's ceremony due to being in Washington, D.C., but proud to be here today in his stead to recognize somebody of great importance, significance, and service to not only this community, but at large to our country. There's a phrase that oftentimes when talking about individuals like Mr. Monica comes up. It has roots in African culture. It says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. And Don was one of those people who ran together. If you look around this room, whether it's our elected leaders in government, whether it is our friends from the Legion, or just half of Corinth, which is here today, this is a testament that Don ran as a group, as a collective, making you feel like you're part of that larger fabric of family and community. And besides his extensive military service that has been talked about very eloquently, I know Don must be a very trustworthy guy, because if he was the one entrusted with shouting out the bingo numbers, that means you can trust that person, as it says in his bio here. And I wish I had the chance to play bingo with him. But the more important thing is, while Don was of service to this country, of this community, in his many roles, whether it was with the Boy Scouts of America, whether it was with his local fire department, he also left an impact with his family. Because when I was talking to Susan, she was mentioning, how a week after he came back from deployment, they got married. There must have been a hell of a bachelor party. But this is a testament that Don was one of those people who cared about his family, whether it was his sons, Tim, Scott, Andrew, all of them so humble, but also told me, if I could take this liberty, that their father never really talked about their service back at home. And that shows you the humility of people like Don Monica. And it is because of that service, that passion for country, that passion to community and service to Saratoga County, that Congressman Tonko wanted to adequately recognize Mr. Monica. And he requested that a flag be flown over our nation's capital in name and memory and honor of Mr. Monica, to recognize his service in the United States Army and beyond. And it is with pleasure, honor, that I present to you with this flag, which is flown over our nation's capital, the very capital that represents the values of democracy, freedom, that Don helped protect in uniform for all of us, and our country's the better for it. So on behalf of a grateful Congress of the United States through Congressman Paul Tonko, I'm proud to present this flag to you. I hope this reminds you every time you look at it as a token of his service to our country and our community. Thank you.
Please rise. Thank you. You may be seated once again. Just for those who couldn't hear and for those who are streaming this, what Chaplain O'Keefe mentioned is that we are going to move outside in a moment for the flag raising portion of our ceremony. We will fly that flag here at the County Board of Supervisors for 30 days in honor of Don Monica. And at which time we'll take it down, put it in a nice case and return it to your family. Another point of order I'd like to mention is, as you all walked in through the doors, just outside those doors, there's a great display case. And in that display case are pictures and information, some mementos of Don's that were loaned to us by his wife, Sue. That letter is in there that Sue mentioned, loaned to us. And so if you get a minute, stop and take a look at that. Our county historian, Lauren Roberts, puts that together for us every month. And we're grateful for her participation in this as well. And we're going to hit her up for in a minute. But so that'll be here for 30 days in honor of Don. So everybody who comes in and out of the building will also be able to see and know who our deceased veteran of the month is. And that flag will fly in his honor. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple other people that help out with this ceremony. First, I'd like to mention my staff. The bulk of the work done on this thing, all of the letters and the legwork is done by Megan Cutbush back there. Megan does a great job. Our veteran service officer hiding back there, combat infantryman, veteran Tamim Ferris is back there. Thankfully, Tamim was also Army, so that's good. He's not in the room, but one of our van drivers is a member of Post 533, Rich Lindsay. He's outside with the honor guard. So Rich Lindsay is here and he helps us with our medical transportation for veterans. All of the efforts that we do, that the county does, are coordinated in close partnership with the Board of Supervisors. And not every county does this, but we do. We have a committee of supervisors dedicated to our veteran services. And we are very fortunate to have a great chairman this year. He's a Navy veteran, so we'll let him slide on that one. But Supervisor Ian Murray is with us from the town of Saratoga, who will make a final presentation.
Good afternoon. It's an honor and privilege to present this on behalf of veteran Donald C. Monica. United States of America honors the memory of Donald C. Monica. This certificate is awarded by a grateful nation in recognition of the devoted and selfless consaction to the service of our country and the armed forces of the United States. Joseph R. Biden, President of the United States.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Murray. And I mentioned a minute ago, we were going to hit Lauren Roberts up. Lauren is our county historian, but she also has a great voice. And several years ago, we had a former supervisor and World War II veteran, Chris Scambotti, had the idea of adding the singing of Amazing Grace to this ceremony. And it's become somewhat of a tradition. Chris used to lead us in it, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But when she's here, we ask Lauren to do so. Because she does a fantastic job and much better job than I do. So Lauren, if you'd come forward, we'd appreciate it. And if you'd all like to stand and join, the words are on the back of the program.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Thank you.
Corinth had to show us up on the Amazing Grace too. It's the best version we've ever had. So that's good. Thank you. Please be seated for one more moment. Just some housekeeping before we finish. I have a couple of plugs I have to make, a couple of big events, veteran related, that we're working on here in the county. First, Lauren is heading up our efforts to recognize and commemorate the 250th anniversary of the battles of Saratoga and the American Revolution. All of the information on the events that are taking place throughout the county, which will be many, we've already started, and there's a lot of exciting things coming up. All the information can be found on saratoga250.com. First, we have coming up on May 4th, Lauren, is the Women in War Symposium. It's a day-long symposium with noted historians who will give talks and tours regarding the impact of women in the Revolutionary War, and in particular in the local area here. So check out the information on that. Moving on to something that we're working on in partnership with the Friends at Saratoga Public Library on April 30th at the Spa Little Theater. We will be sponsoring, in partnership with the Friends of the Library, a talk hosted by Don Miller. Don Miller is the author of Masters of the Air, the book that details the exploits of our World War II bomber crew members in World War II. And his book has been turned into a miniseries featured on Apple TV, which is currently airing now on that streaming service. So we're really excited about the opportunity to hear from Don and hear directly about his conversations with those actual men who took those flights into Germany on those bombers. And it's an amazing story. I've had the pleasure of seeing the series and just started reading the book, and it's really unbelievable. So if you're familiar with that, if you're interested in that, tickets are available on the Saratoga Friends of the Saratoga Library website, and they are free for veterans as sponsored by Saratoga County. With that, I would ask you all to join me out in front of the building for our flag raising portion of the ceremony. If I could have the family just to stick around in here 1 minute so that we can take a quick photograph with our elected officials, and then we'll move outside for the flag raising portion of the ceremony. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Don's family for giving us this opportunity to honor him. And I want to thank Don for the sun, because we haven't seen this in a while. So, a big round of applause for Don. So at this time, I'd ask you all to bow your heads for our closing prayer from Chaplain O'Keefe.
Dismiss us with your blessings, our Holy Father, as we leave this ceremony with the faith that your Spirit goes with us. Amen.
Amen.
Attention. Order. Ready. Aim. Fire. 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 Set arms.
And now, folks, if you could all join us in singing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to the Monica family once again. Thank you.